I do.
All right. Guys, can you have a seat?
All right. Deep breaths. Control your heart rate.
Witnesses, you'll just sit over here.
Everything according to what we've written down.
All right. So, everyone here, you are gathered here to present the trial for Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and Maximilien Robespierre. You have no doubt worked diligently and put effort into proving guilt or innocence of the charges brought forth. Keep in mind that the same principles of the court apply and that you all swore an oath to be honest and truthful. Penalties can and will be applied as needed. With that, let's get this underway. We're going to bring up the court case number QH 16171, the People versus Louis XVI, on charges of treason and involuntary manslaughter. Louis, please stand. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Okay. Prosecution, are you ready? Okay. You may start with your opening statements. Wherever.
King Louis XVI was not only a bad king, but also a criminal. The king did many things wrong during his reign, but a few things specifically stuck out. The king committed involuntary manslaughter by letting his people starve to death. He heavily indulged in personal necessities, spending all the kingdom's money on himself. On top of that, he raised taxes on the lower class, depriving them of more money and making it harder for them to find food. It got so bad, peasants started trying to make bread out of dirt and flour. He also committed treason against his own country. Letters were written under the king's name, seeking assistance from foreign countries. The letter was written to Monsieur Le Baron de Bertil, asking for help. The king also attempted to flee his country and settle in France, where he was later captured and brought back. The evidence will show that King Louis is guilty of involuntary manslaughter and
Defense, are you ready?
Yes. Okay. Good morning. My name is Louis Styles, and it is my pleasure to represent King Louis XVI on this very important case. The defendant stands here falsely accused of treason and involuntary manslaughter, two very serious crimes. And in the case, we will ask for a verdict of not guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, listen to her story and keep an open heart and an open mind. The prosecution has indicated that my client is guilty of involuntary manslaughter and treason. My client lived an unfortunate life as a child. He lost his mother, he lost his father, he lost his brother, all by the age of 13. He was forced to be king without any experience and was arranged to marry a woman he did not know or even heard about. He was outspoken and was forced to take a crown. At the conclusion of the case, we will ask that you find my client as innocent, and the state will be its burden of proof and will ask for a verdict of not guilty for both parties.
All right. Prosecution, you may call your first witness.
so we're calling a guard to the state.
Guard?
So you are a former community guard.
Yes, I am.
So what happened on the night of June 20th, 1799?
As I was keeping watch of the kingdom, I saw suspicious person walk through the kingdom. And at seeing him and behold, we recognized that King Louis was trying to flee the castle.
How did you know it was the king?
On his assignment, which is a currency, his portrait was on him. And after that, we arrested him in appearance.
Defense, do you have any questions?
No.
No questions.
Okay.
Your Honor.
You may be excused. Next witness.
Next we have a young escort.
Okay, what is your name?
Rose.
And how old are you, Rose?
10.
So you lived as a peasant during King Louis' rule, yes?
Yes.
So what was your life like?
My mom was a baker and my dad was a farmer, and
he had all of his crops, but King Louis raised the taxes, so he had to give whatever leftover crops that he had to him, so we didn't have much food.
So, what happened to your parents? Like, what happened after he raised taxes?
My mom started making bread out of dirt and flour, and we didn't have enough food, so that they starved and they died.
So, is it just you now, no parents?
Yes.
And they died because there was not enough money or food to help them survive?
Yes.
No further questions.
Can I? Yeah.
So, you say that your life was horrible as a child.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the conditions of your state when you like where it was at?
Yes.
What was the weather like?
It was very windy, and although there was bad weather, it was not all the weather's fault. We did not have a good life.
So, is it fair to say that maybe the weather could have prevented a lot of growth of the product of food from the farmers if they were not able to grow food if there was not a lot of water?
Yes.
Defense, can you call your first witness to the stand?
Okay, I'd like to call Louis XVI to the stand.
Did you ever feel threatened in France during the revolution?
Yes, my family did. I did. And I worried for their safety on several occasions.
Okay. Were you or were you not put under house arrest during this?
Yes, I was. And my family was forced or put into the palace and kept there.
I also have a follow-up question. And how in ways were you threatened?
Well, looking back on it, I went back to the palace seeking safety from the third estate, and I was not given it. So many of my guards during the attack of Tuileries were slain. We're told, if you are not loyal to this republic, you die. And there were several occasions.
Ladies and gentlemen, my victim here, he was threatened and he was under house arrest. So he was a victim of no further questions.
So, when you say you were threatened, was it ever violent threats, or was it just people saying that they were happy with how you were doing?
Violent threats.
Like how?
Well, as I see it, my guards being forced to swear allegiance or die to a republic that they do not want to swear allegiance to is a threat.
And when you say republic, are you referring to what? Your kingdom? Like,
The new republic that the Third Estate brought about.
so, but were these threats ever against you or just your guards?
I take a threat against my guards as a threat against me.
But there were none directly against you. So, in a sense, if there were none directly against you, why would you flee and not your guards?
There were plenty of, how you say, There was plenty of mockery of me and my family, and I believe that after a while, it turned into straight-up hatred. I saw the hatred of everyone.
You fled due to mockery, so not due to threats, but due to people not approving of what you were saying.
No.
Then what do you mean mockery was one of the reasons?
Mockery was something definitely shown, but it was not the primary reason. I did fear for my family, and being put under house arrest showed that my fear was not baseless. I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay.
Okay, I'd like to call Marie Charlize to the stand.
Okay. Can you explain what life was like being raised by your parents?
Yes, my father was always very affectionate towards my brother and myself, while my mother was stricter, but loved us no less. She was determined that I should not grow up as haughty as my great aunts on my father's side of the family. She often invited children of lower rank into the palace to dine with us, and would encourage me to give my toys to the poor. She had taught me about the suffering of others and how to understand the people of France. I remember on New Year's Day of 1784, after having some beautiful toys brought to my apartment in the palace, she had told me, "I should have liked to give you all of these New Year's gifts, but the winter is very hard. There is a crowd of unhappy people who have no bread to eat, no clothes to wear, no wood to make a fire. I have given them all my money. I have none left to buy your presents, so there will be none this year."
Wait, I thought we were not kind to the peasants.
No, my parents were very, very affectionate and caring towards the people of France.
Okay. So, what was your life for your family when the revolution started?
It was the most terrible of occurrences that no child should ever have to endure. It started to begin most likely in 1789, when France became bankrupt from the country's support of the American Revolution and the rise of food prices due to a terrible drought. But all this was worsened by propagandists whose main objective was to ridicule the royal family, especially my mother and father. The attacks on my parents grew even more vicious as time had passed. There were even some people who went as far as assassination attempts. The most embarrassing, though, had to be the printing and distributing of pamphlets such as La Belle, which accused my mother of sexually explicit depravities. And during the same time, my family had undergone some horrific events. My younger sister, Sophie, had died at this time from tuberculosis at only 11 months old, which sent my mother into a state of depression. Then 2 years later, in 1789, my oldest brother had also died from tuberculosis, which then brought my father a great deal of sadness and anxiety for the rest of his children.
So would you say growing up as a child you had good parents?
Oh, yes, very much so. Perhaps even more than most children could wish for.
Now, can you please explain to us what it was like as a child to live in prison with the rest of your family?
This is the worst memory of them all. It acts as if a reoccurring nightmare, forever stuck, circulating my memory. It is all as vivid as when it had first happened. It was the 10th of August, 1792, and my family had taken refuge in the Legislative Assembly. Then months later, which had not seemed long enough whatsoever, on the 21st of January, 1793, my father had come to the rest of our family in our apartment in the Tower Temple, which he had informed us at this time would be the last time he would see us in a physical sin of state. Then my mother grasped him in her arms as she began to weep. Then I understood. My father had been sentenced to death. I embraced his waist as he put his arms around me. I could feel the tears dripping down my face. Then my brother, Louis Charles, began to cry. and he grasped my father's legs, for he had no clue why everyone else was in tears. Then my father had spoke his farewell to each of us, and was escorted out by men whom would soon be walking him up to the guillotine. After both my brother, then my mother were stripped from my company as well, but this time without any explanation as to why they were gone. My lone near 2 years stay at the Temple Tower was the hardest to endure. I was greatly bored and only had 2 books to read for that time. I would often make requests for more books, or even just to leave my room to see the other quarters of the temple. But they all were rejected by government officials of the Republic. I also had to endure listening to my brother's cries and screams whenever he was beaten. I would never have the ability to see him, but listening to his cries left my heart warm, for that was the only sign of him still being alive. Throughout my entire imprisonment, I was never told what had happened to my family. I had hoped my mother had been living in exile while my brother had grown to be a free man. I had also scratched these words on my wall in the tower. Marie-Therese Charlotte is the most unhappy person in the world. She can obtain no news of her mother, nor be reunited to her. Though she has asked it 1,000 times, live my good mother, whom I love well, but of whom I can hear no good tidings. O my Father, watch over me from heaven above. O my God, forgive these who have made my parents suffer. Then late August of 1795, I was finally told of the fate of my family. How my mother was sentenced to death, such as my father, and how my brother had died from the same illness that took our siblings. And as soon as I was informed, I fell to my knees and wept. I released loud sobs of anguish and grief. Then it was only after the terror had ended on the eve of my birthday, the 18th of December, 1795, when I was finally allowed to leave the tower and France itself.
So would you say, because of your story, everything that has happened to you, does your father deserve the death penalty?
In my humble opinion, I believe that no one deserves the death penalty, especially people with such loving and caring ambitions as my parents.
So, you said that you guys treated the peasants well. You helped support them and stuff. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say my father and mother treated them very well.
So then, the raising taxes on them and taking off for them when they couldn't afford to pay taxes, how does that help them?
That was all due to the drought that was set place in France at that time.
Yes, the drought caused the crops to fail, but that did not cause your father to raise taxes. He made that conscious decision by himself, correct?
Yes.
And you say your imprisonment, like your home arrest, was one of the worst days of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Weren't you given food? Were you given a place to stay?
Yes, but I was never allowed to leave. I was kept in one room for 2.5 years of my entire life.
So even though you were confined to one room, you had the constant knowledge that you would get food every day and have a place to stay. When peasants in your country didn't know that. They didn't have that reassurance of, I get to go home every day and have food. And you feel those were the worst years of your life? You know you were going to constantly have food and have a place to stay. You just weren't allowed to leave.
Yes.
And you also feel that your father didn't deserve the death penalty?
Yes.
And you said it's because you believe no one does, right?
Yes.
So how does that respond to all of his killings? He killed many people. He allowed the deaths of many people. So you were okay with those until it was your father?
He himself did not commit the acts of death. He was ordered to as an act of a king, a ruler, not himself just forcing the deaths of many.
But the king also has power as a king. He has the power over the courts. So he has the power to say he does not want people to die, yet he allowed it. So is it just an issue now that it was his father?
In a sense, yes.
No,
Each side will be given 2 minutes to get their opening statements put together,
Or closing?
or closing statements. Apologize.
Wait, can we please call Louis the 16th up to the stand again, please?
I will allow that, yes.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a final statement. I pray that after this case, that my son, my daughter, and I can live in peace. I pray that they will not have to endure prison conditions any longer. I pray that the people will not be blinded by their rage and see that I want the best for France. And that is why I came back, and that is why I endured this for so long. Thank you.
All right. Each side has 2 minutes to prepare their closing statements.
Something has started on my phone. I don't think they had anything against us that proved anything. Nothing except pride.
That one's working.
Is it? Hello? Hello? Hello?
When you blew into it, I could hear it.
How's that?
All right. Prosecution, if you will present your closing argument, please.
The defense argued that Louis felt unsafe at the time that he. They had no argument against honor, against manslaughter, or treason. They didn't explain the meaning of their witness, who his son may have told a life story. He may have lived a hard life for him, but the people of France lived worse. Natural disasters, as they brought up, may have played a factor, but natural disasters are something that you need to be prepared for. Natural disasters are something that can be prevented, but the cause and destruction of them can be helped. The defense has no reason to say that he is allowed to flee a country due to him feeling like there was mockery and that he felt unsafe. He left France twice, but he says he loved France and he loved to support his country. That doesn't make sense. These people lived a hard life and he did not do anything to help. I hope you will find him guilty on those charges.
Defense?
I'd like to say that prosecution did not have a lot of evidence against us. They did not prove that they proved that Louis left, but they did not have the arguments against the fact that he was threatened with violence. And he was leaving because he is a king. Do you want your king to die? He was threatened by violence. He is going to die, so he is going to leave for what is best. He came back and he apologized. I do not know if he has ever apologized for doing such things. He was horrible. I agree that we can. He had no facts against him, and for the evidence provided, the involuntary manslaughter was after his death. You can't prove it to him, and King Louis was already dead.
All right. This will mark the end of the trial for Louis XVI. Thank you, everybody, for your effort, and we will come back with a verdict at a later date. All right, case number QH 16172, People versus Marie Antoinette. Please come get prepared. All right, case number QH 16172, People versus Marie Antoinette, on the charges of criminal negligence and treason. Marie, will you please stand? How do you plead to these charges?
Not guilty.
Prosecution, are you prepared for your opening statements? All right, you may begin.
Good morning. My name is Vera Martineau, and I am prosecuting Marie Antoinette. The defendant in this case is being charged for criminal negligence and treason. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman was brought to power through her marriage to Louis XVI. She was given the power to rule an entire country and to be on the right hand of Louis. But instead of using that power in a good way, she abused it to spend it on extravagant jewelry and clothing. It's 1791. At this time, the people that are living in France are overflowing with taxes. They have close to nothing, and some don't even have food. But instead of helping her own people, Marie continued to gamble and use their hard-earned money to please herself. The evidence will show that this is criminal negligence, which generally involves an indifference for human life or for the safety of people. Her irresponsibility dragged the country into even further debt and brought anger to the people. It came to a point that the people could no longer stand this behavior, so they began to rebel. They began marching and protesting, and they made the decision to put Louis and Marie on house arrest. And during this time, instead of reaching out to her people finally at some point, she writes a letter to Austria asking them to come and compromise with the people. Now, I don't think you compromise with an entire country by sitting at a table over a cup of tea.
especially when it involves people fleeing to the borders and military weapons. The evidence will show that she betrayed France to Austria. And by doing this, she not only hurt herself and the people that surrounded her, but she hurt her very own country.
Defense?
Today, Marie Antoinette is being charged with treason and criminal negligence. As a young woman who was forced into marriage, she had to make decisions under pressure that no 14-year-old should ever have to endure, contributing to a possible case of Stockholm Syndrome. As a 14-year-old, she had to make decisions that no 14-year-old should ever have to endure. Her husband, Louis XVI, was mentally unable to rule, that Marie had to step forward and rule the country that she was not born into. As she grew older, the country of France grew against her and her decisions. As a young woman and a daughter, she turned to her mother for help. We ask that before you close your mind, you listen to all evidence and testimony. Please keep an open mind before you decide Marie Antoinette's fate.
Thank you. Prosecution, may you call your first witness?
So we are calling up an expert in deciphering Marie's letters. In your opinion, looking at the letters and reading over them and really studying them, what kind of character did Marie have?
Marie had a very free spirit. She was pretty independent. She didn't care what anyone thought of her.
Were there any patterns or themes that you noticed over time as the letters progressed?
I noticed that you could see her grow from a young woman into a political leader. She started out as someone talking about parties and all of her extravagant clothing. And then she goes into talking about more political issues. I do notice that she uses a lot of emotion in her letters. She feels everything, talks about everything through her emotions.
In your opinion, did her letters show evidence of her treason?
Some people may say that what she had written meant another thing, but I think they're very straightforward. She even talks about an instance where a foreign power is coming to compromise with the people. And to me, that does treason.
Thank you. No further questions.
Did she write in code to anyone in particular?
I don't believe so.
Our next witness is Robespierre. Do you believe that the royal family played their role in ruling the people?
In my opinion, no. As a ruler, you should be a servant of the people. Do what's best for your country. And it's blatantly obvious that no one in the royal family was even thinking of the people. They put themselves before their people and their country.
Why did you feel that it was necessary to remove the royal family?
I think it's necessary to remove the royal family because by their actions and what they have done in our political system, they have just poisoned the entire monarchy. And in my opinion, the only way that we can move on is a revolution with democracy.
Further questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, let me step down.
We'd like to call King Louis up. Were you aware that Marie was draining some of France's resources with her extravagant spending?
No.
Did you reach out for help when you were in trouble?
Yes, I did.
Who did you reach out to? And who was it exactly that they were reaching out?
Marie.
What did she ask Austria to do?
She asked Austria to
No further questions.
Okay.
I'd like to call Marie's mother. Were you ever ashamed of Marie's behavior?
I love my daughter terribly, but unfortunately, yes, I was ashamed of her actions. See, she was gambling, and poor Louis, she never really spent time with him like she was supposed to. And for another thing, she was always out partying, which was not good for a queen to be doing.
Why did you decide to give her away to King Louis? What was your purpose in that?
The reason that we gave her to King Louis was because at the time we had just gotten over the 7 Years' War with Austria, and unfortunately that left ties with France severed, and so in order to repair these ties, we had to give our daughter.
And do you think that she fulfilled that duty?
As I said before, I love her terribly, but no, I think she failed because she wasn't really there for Louis, and she was out gambling and partying.
In your opinion, was it a mistake to give Marie to France?
Yes, I do, because she caused a revolution.
No further questions.
We have an objection to the gambling.
Okay.
We never got any evidence on it.
Okay. I will sustain.
Is it true that France and Austria were allies after the marriage of Marie and Louis?
Yes.
So, according to the evidence you sent your daughter over, okay. So, according to the defense of, just a second.
Our next and last witness is Teresa Johnson. So how did you feel when you first heard that Marie was coming to France?
I was excited when Marie was coming to France because I think that I had France and Austria together.
Did your opinion of her change once she came to power?
Yes, because I personally want to give her the highest of her service. And when she got to power, I was beginning to realize how selfish she was.
How was your life impacted by Marie's behavior?
I lost a lot of time with my family because I was constantly towards the fact that she was and I never realized that some of these so time consuming and selfish because when I left her there, I remember thinking that I could really much not finish work so that she was really wanted to carry all that stuff back. So if I dropped something, it was just too much to handle.
So in your opinion, did she commit criminal negligence by absolutely ignoring people and showing disregard?
Yes, because I didn't realize that my fears and fears she would have to get them and push them and foot and she just kind of crushed them off because I knew she was going to
No further questions.
I'm going to request a small recess.
Okay. I'll give 2-minute recess. Yes. The court would like to ask Marie's mother to please come back up to the stand.
Is it true that France and Austria were allies after the marriage of Marie and Louis?
Yes.
Okay. So according to the definition of treason, you must contact an enemy. And if Marie contacted Austria, who was an ally, she would not be committing treason, correct?
However, they weren't allies because they started to have a revolution after that. So their allies dissipated.
But you just said that they were allies.
After we gave her, when we first gave her.
Please say yes or no to the question.
No.
Never.
Does the prosecution have any further witnesses? Okay. Defense, you may call your first witness to the stand.
I would like to call Marie Antoinette to the stand. Please say your name for the record.
Marie Antoinette.
How did your marriage take place?
We were forced into marriage by my mother.
At what age were you forced into that marriage?
I was 14 at the time.
Is it true that your husband stopped performing his duties as king?
He performed his duties for a short time, but then he stopped slowly.
Who do you believe had more control over the country?
I believe that it was the husband's duty to perform control over the country, but because the queen was just there to be the side piece, but that wasn't the case in ours.
At what state was the country in when you took over rule?
The country was in disarray. It was chaotic and falling down in front of us.
Do you love and care about the people of France?
I love the people of France. I started to reconstruct my thinking to become more French than Austrian when I came here. I love the people here and accepted the title of queen to reign over them, to protect them to the best of my ability. I love them more than Louis, who just stopped working and gave up on the people. I gave up my marriage to help protect the people as much as I could.
Will you read this passage from a letter you wrote to your mother?
When we went to walk in the Tuileries. There was so vast a crowd that we were 3/4 of an hour without being able to move either forward or backward. The Dauphin and I gave repeated orders to the guards not to beat anyone, which had a very good effect. Such excellent order was kept the whole day that in spite of the enormous crowd which followed us everywhere, not a person was hurt. When we returned, our walk went up to the open terrace and stayed there half an hour. I cannot describe to you, my dear mamma, the transports of joy and affection which every one exhibited towards us. Before we withdrew, we kissed our hands to the people, which gave them great pleasure. What a happy thing it is for the persons in our rank to gain the love of our whole nation so cheaply. Yet there is nothing so precious. I felt it thoroughly and shall never forget it.
So would you say that you and your mother had a friendly relationship?
Yes, I wrote to her all the time, and she wrote to me.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Did you write letters to Austria asking them to come into France and compromise with them?
Yes.
Do you think that Louis loved you?
No.
Well, then can you explain why in your letter you wrote, I still hope for the best. He really loves me and does everything that I want.
Because I believe that I fell under Stockholm Syndrome, and I believe that he loved me. Like, I fell under his abuse and believed that he loved me.
Objection, we were never given any evidence of the Stockholm Syndrome. I have your 2 documents, it's just the 2 letters. Anyway, continuing on, did you ever try to cover up anything that you were doing?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever ignore your duties as a queen?
Such as?
I don't know, maybe taking too much time partying, gambling, spending money on things that they shouldn't be spent on.
As I said before, it was the husband's duty, in my belief, to rule over the nation. I was a side piece.
Did you commit treason?
I don't believe so.
So, why did you ask another country to come and compromise with the people? What were you meaning with that, if it wasn't treason?
I had to protect myself, because my husband was not doing his duties.
Okay, so you were protecting yourself by hurting an entire country.
I never said hurt the entire country.
Well, a war probably would hurt a couple people.
That's your opinion versus mine.
Answer the question.
I would like to call Adele Beaumont to the stand. Please state your name for the record.
Adele Beaumont.
What is your relation to the Queen?
I am a peasant, so I'm in the third estate, and I believe that Marie is innocent.
What is your opinion on the Queen's lifestyle?
I think she has a lot of money, and she's very popular in France, and a lot of people like her, but very much misunderstand her.
Why do you think people believe it is the Queen's responsibility to provide?
Because she would be second in power, but it should be the king's responsibility to be in power. She had to take over, but that does not mean that being a king or a queen requires you to look after how much food someone gets or how much money they make, because that is their personal duty.
What do you think about it?
I personally think that I should take care of my own family and that it's not her job. I should have to pay taxes because the government needs money to take care of things like jobs that I need.
Any further questions?
So you mentioned that you don't think it was the Queen's duty or the King's to really look after the people. So what exactly is their role?
I think they need to look over the people, but directly, they should not have to give me money or my family money or food.
Were you okay with the fact that you were overtaxed?
Yes.
Any further questions?
We would like to call a professional to the stand.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Amanda Bodenstein.
What is your profession?
I'm a psychology teacher.
What is Stockholm Syndrome?
It is a psychological condition that often causes hostages to develop an alliance and sometimes even feelings of sympathy and love and a deep connection with their captors.
What qualifies someone as having Stockholm Syndrome?
It's currently in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for psych disorders under, it's kind of under a column that says extreme stress disorders. So it's considered to be sort of a subcategory, if you will, of post-traumatic stress disorder.
And do you believe Miss Marie Antoinette is showing signs of this Stockholm Syndrome?
There are a couple indicators. One, a lot of times people who develop this condition not only develop a strong feeling of love and protection and empathy with their captors, but they also develop a strong hatred of anybody that is trying to cause their captors harm. And another thing that's interesting is when you brought up the letter, and in the letter she mentioned love, and here on the stand she's saying no, she doesn't feel that way toward him. a lot of times when they're taken out of that situation, out of that abusive relationship, if you will, they can look back and they realize that what they had experienced was fake.
No further questions.
Okay.
I'd like to call Francois Domain.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Francois Gomain.
What is your relation to the king and queen?
I am the royal locksmith.
Were you better friends with King Louis or Queen Marie?
King Louis.
Were you with the king often?
We were often together, yes. We were working on locks and furniture, and it took up a lot of our days.
Since this took up a lot of your time, do you believe King Louis was unable to perform his duties towards France?
I do believe that because he spent a lot of time with me and not on his country, that yes.
No further questions, Roman.
Okay. We'll call a short recess so closing arguments may be established. All right. Prosecution, are you ready with your closing arguments?
Isabel Marie may have been given this position against her will, and she may have been forced to be queen and take a position that she wasn't supposed to because King Louis wouldn't take his. That doesn't give her the permission to neglect her people and put them in danger by asking Austria to invade France. The evidence did show that she is guilty without a doubt, and we hope that you can see the truth and punish her for the pain that she caused her people.
Defense?
Your Honor, we had a professional psychologist come up and talk about Stockholm Syndrome, and she specifically said that as a person in captivity, they seem to love their captor, but when they're taken out of that situation, they feel as though it was fake. Multiple times the prosecution team has said that Marie had gambled, yet they gave no evidence. There was no evidence given to us that Marie coded letters to anyone specifically, and there is no proof of either of the charges, neither criminal negligence or treason.
All right. That will end the trial for Marie Antoinette. We will now take a short recess while we prepare for the third and final trial of Robespierre. You can just put down, so, for instance, if you want it alternatives for Marie. Okay, cool. So, just for you, write down the sheet that you will leave those charges, yes or no? Do the best you can.
I would just right. Wow, that's very difficult to see. I can read it. Everybody else can. Are you serious? This is a really long one.
I'll show you the paper, but I actually wrote on there what I thought. So. Eli, are you ready? Reese, are you ready?
Yes, I am very ready. Super breath.
I'd like to call to order case number QH16173, the People versus Maximilien Robespierre, on the charges of conspiracy to commit murder and conspiracy to impede and injure an officer. Maximilien Robespierre, could you please stand? How do you plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Okay. Prosecution, are you prepared to start your opening statement?
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a story of a politician who fought to free us from the hands of a king, only to use his power and status to put us in the hands of a dictator. In the beginning, Maximilian Robespierre advocated for equality for all and for the people's voice. However, this was short-lived, for this was only the beginning of a much bigger scheme to take all the power for himself. From a young age, Robespierre grew obsessed with the idea of a virtuous felon, of a man standing alone with his ideals, represented by a diary entry that he wrote. Yet he claimed to be against one person ruling over the government. He gained much inspiration from the idealized Roman Republic, so it wasn't much of a surprise when he became a noted figure in the political movement. From there, he spoke to many crowds and gained much support within the National Assembly, which helped him become a well-known figure of the revolutionary body. He spoke of a government where the people had a voice and no one person would dictate what happened. He brought hope and life back into the commoners of France. However, it soon became clear that Robespierre was slowly becoming what everyone feared most. Following the execution of King Louis XVI, Robespierre quickly became power-hungry. He ordered the execution of 17,000 people, all of which he accused of being traitors because they still supported the king. It wasn't until he began turning on his close friends that the National Assembly began seeing him for what he truly was. The people quickly rose against him, overthrowing him and the few followers he had left. The reign of terror came to an end, and France was finally made peace. Robespierre was a man of many talents, such as murder, corruption, and seizing power. Today we will be deciding if this monster of a man is in prison or walks away.
Defense?
The prosecution will try to say that my client, Maximilian Robespierre, conspired to commit murder and conspired to injure or impede officers of the law. What they fail to see is that my client acted in the interests of the great nation of France and did what he, as well as many others, believed was right. Going into this trial, I offer the definition of conspiracy. Cornell University Law School defines conspiracy as an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act, along with an intent to achieve the agreement's goal. The prosecution must prove that there was an agreement and an intent to achieve the agreement's goal in order for the charges brought against Robespierre to stand. I also want to remind the jury that my client is innocent until proven guilty. I also ask that the judge and the jury keep an open mind and remember this question. When the safety and security of your nation is threatened, what would you do to ensure that the people of your nation stay safe? Thank you.
Prosecution, call your first witness.
I'd like to call George Dent. George is Dent.
My mouth is super dry. How do you know Maximilian Robespierre?
Maximilian Robespierre and I were both elected and voted into the National Convention in 1972. He then became a close friend and then a rival.
Explain to the court your views on revolution.
Well, first off, I was in favor of rebuilding France's monarchy, and I was a major opponent against tyranny. I had stepped down from my position as leader of the National Convention because I was afraid of how the direction of the convention was going to lead into such a ordeal to become the reign of terror. And when trying to retain my position, I was turned away, which pitted myself against Robespierre.
Okay. Tell me about the arrest and execution of King Louis XVI.
King Louis XVI was convicted of conspiracy with foreign powers and sentenced to death by the National Convention without a fair trial.
What were the circumstances of this trial?
Louis was not given a fair trial, and he was sentenced to death without question.
And finally, who was in the place of power in the National Convention that convicted and sentenced the king to death?
Maximilian Robespierre.
Defense?
A minute.
Yep.
So what were your beliefs whenever it came to government? What did you just stated?
I believe that France should have stayed with monarchy, not necessarily the monarchy that King Louis and Marie Antoinette had run, but it just stay as a monarchy to where one selected individual would be controlled.
All right, can you read this?
The Revolutionary Tribunal is instituted to punish the enemies of the people. The enemies of the people are those who seek to destroy public liberty, either by force or by cunning. The following are deemed enemies of the people: those who have instigated the reestablishment of monarchy, or have sought to discard or dissolve the National Convention and by the revolutionary and the Republican government of which it is the center.
So, based on this, would you agree that you are an enemy of the people?
No, I do not.
Why?
Because I had wanted to retain the monarchy, like I had said, not the monarchy that was led by King Louis and his wife Marie Antoinette, but a monarchy that would not only take care of the people of France of all classes, but that would lead the country of France into a time of peace and not terror.
All right, but based on this, it says that an enemy of the people is somebody who wants to reestablish a monarchy. And based on this, would you say you're an enemy of the people?
No.
If you want to reestablish a monarchy, are you an enemy of the people as by this definition?
Me, myself, or Robespierre?
You.
Yes.
All right, so then, if you are an enemy of the people, isn't any punishment brought against you justified legally?
Could you restate that, please?
All right. So this law, the law of 22 prairial, states that an enemy of the people is obligated to be punished. And so if you are an enemy of the people, as you had said yourself, aren't you legally bound to be punished?
Yes, but I am not the subject of this trial.
Thank you. All right. Had you said something about the voting on King Louis in the past cross-examination?
What was that?
The voting of King Louis, or his regarding his trial and how it was unfair. Did you say something about that?
No, I did not.
You didn't say anything about King Louis?
I had said that King Louis was convicted of conspiracy with foreign powers and sentenced to death, but I had said nothing about voting of King Louis.
Did you say that he had a fair trial?
No, I did not.
Do you believe he had a fair trial?
No, I did not.
Okay. Can you read this?
In December of 1972, the National Convention placed the disposed Louis XVI on trial. The former king was presented with 33 charges, each describing active betrayal, sabotage, or failure of leadership. After weeks of testimony, legal argument, and deliberation, all 693 of the National Convention's deputies voted in favor of King's guilt.
Do you still believe that there was an unfair trial?
Yes.
Why?
Because even just, was it 693? No.
Yeah.
Just because 693 people would say he's guilty, that does not mean that.
Well, are you aware that the National Convention, these 693 men, spoke on behalf of the 98% of France?
But it's the 90% all, 98% all people. Because
not all, but if 98% of the people believe the king is guilty, then isn't he guilty?
Unless
isn't that a fair enough trial? That's a fair trial, is it not?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
Prosecution.
Antoine St. Justice. How do you know Maximilian Robespierre?
He and I were both members of the National Convention.
Tell me about the execution of George Stanton.
Well, prior to his trial, Maximilian Robespierre locked himself in his bedroom for a couple days. Whenever he came out, I confronted him and he handed me a notebook.
What did this notebook contain?
Well, it contained fragments of sentences lined up in a way to where they were hard to depict and understand. But I was told to use them to create a sort of rally speech and come up with charges for George Danton.
Tell me about George Danton's trial.
Well, it was lined up in a way that wasn't really fair whatsoever. There weren't any witnesses, so he really didn't have anyone on his side to speak for him. And whenever the next day in the prisons, they heard about a rumor about a spy and that his followers were going to have a prison break. So they passed a law that didn't allow him to speak for himself.
Do you idolize Maximilian Robespierre?
I wouldn't say idolize, but I did admire him.
Okay. But if you didn't really idolize him, why would you compare him to God, as we had seen in this letter that you wrote?
Well, that's open for interpretation.
Okay. If you believe that Maximilian Robespierre was a terrible person, why would you compare him to God? And whenever God does what is best for his people, why would you ask Robespierre for help with your own sad country if you thought he was a terrible person?
I never said he was a terrible person. As a person, I think he's genuinely kind and generous, but his actions weren't acceptable.
Do you consider yourself a credible and unbiased source towards Robespierre?
Yes.
Why do you consider yourself unbiased?
Because we are basically in the same boat.
But if you work so well with him, then why are you testifying against him?
Because I've reflected on my actions.
Okay. Defense, would you like to call your first witness to the stand?
All right, we'd like to call Augustin Robespierre. In the eyes of the people, who was responsible for the French Revolution?
The French government, the monarchy ruling over us and treating the people, our citizens, unfairly.
So, who would you consider an enemy of the people?
Anyone who opposed the revolution and supported the monarchy.
All right. So then, based on the law of 22 Prairial, would you say that all of these enemies of the people are any punishment against them is justified?
Yes.
All right. Whenever you need to make a stable government and you need to remove an oppressive government from power, what do you believe is needed to do so? What do you believe is justified?
According to The Prince by Machiavelli, removing the monarchy is key to having a stable country.
Were you present for any of the events so far discussed in this trial?
Yes.
Which ones?
Only one of them, and that was the speech that Robespierre gave before he was arrested.
So you were not present for
what
he's on trial for the execution for conspiracy to murder and conspiracy to appear in the house. No further questions.
I'd like to redirect.
Okay.
In your own opinion, do you believe that any of the enemies of the people, specifically officers of the law and employees of the government, do you believe that any punishment brought upon them was justified legally?
Yes.
So based on this, would you say that any offense or conspiracy to impede an officer was legally justified and therefore is not like a crime?
Can I redirect or redirect?
Yes.
Nice.
Reading is so scary.
Let's do this for a while. By, I don't even know if it's going by Eli's. Okay, by Eli's definition of an enemy of the people, was Robespierre not an enemy of the people towards the end of his life?
He was not. He was just trying to do what was best for the people.
He may have been trying to do what was best for the people, but was he not charged with the same things as the same people he executed?
Yes.
He was put to death by popular vote, yes, just like everyone else. Therefore, an enemy of the people.
He was trying to do what was best for them. He wasn't trying to be like, he wasn't trying to kill them off just because he wanted to. He was just trying to help and make it.
So you can do that, but you can claim that Danton did not want the same thing. He did not want what was best.
He did not want to discuss.
No further.
All right. You may step down.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to call Emmanuel Sayas to the stand. Who are you, and what is your role within the National Convention?
I am Emmanuel Sayas, and I am the leader of the political group called the Plain, which is the third party of the National Convention.
All right. How much of the National Convention does the Plain take up?
We make up 389 chairs of the 749 chairs, which is 51%.
So, if you make up the most of the National Convention, which group has the most power?
The Plain, as we slightly have the majority.
Okay. So based on this, would you say that the party of Robespierre, the Jacobins, is not the sole power within the National Convention?
No, because the Plains, or the votes within the National Convention are equal.
So would you say that any decision made within the National Convention is not the sole responsibility of Robespierre, but rather the entire convention as a whole?
Yes.
Yeah, I got some stuff to say. So you said that Robespierre and his political group do not have majority and therefore do not hold the most power or any bearing on the outcome of the trials.
Correct.
So the evidence put forward that he falsified charges against George Danton, that has no bearing on the trial.
All right. I have an objection. Argument is improper. They stated facts and evidence that was not shared with the defense.
Sustained. Next question.
It was in a link, but you just have to read through it. So.
Yeah, we don't have that link. We don't have any links in the evidence shared with us.
Next question.
No further questions.
Done.
All right. And then finally, I'd like to call Maximilian Robespierre to the stand. Did you and another person or other people ever create an agreement to commit murder or impede or injure an officer?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So then, by the legal definition of conspiracy, are you still able to be charged with these Do you have any crimes?
No.
All right, thank you.
One second. So you stated that you had no contact regarding these trials, therefore there was no conspiracy, right?
What trials are you talking about?
Specifically the trial of George Daniel. You had no contact with anybody regarding that trial with any conspiracy. That's what you meant.
I was involved in the trial, and I didn't claim that earlier.
I was asking about your claim of conspiracy, that there wasn't a conspiracy.
Yeah, no one conspired, because at the end of the conspiracy, it's not just multiple people involved, but there's also a specific agreement at the end, and there was no specific agreement made between peoples. However, there was multiple people in a trial because one person doesn't just try. There are multiple people involved, as you can see.
So conspiracy and falsifying evidence with St. Just and meeting with their closest advisors cannot be considered a conspiracy.
As my attorney had stated earlier, we were never given any information about falsifying evidence, therefore it's not relevant to this trial and will be disregarded by the judge.
No further questions.
Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No.
Oh, and we would also like to state that we were not given this journal entry, therefore disregarded.
We 100% give them that.
That's
like,
is that why it's not a part of it? It's the whole.
no, like we did like control find, just like the first two words. What?
Everything that was shared. Everything that was shared with us is right here, and the only part of it that says what, it's nothing to do with this.
I shared it with them, but it's fine.
I didn't.
It's fine. If you didn't see it, it's fine.
I don't.
Okay. We will take a short recess to prepare for closing statements. All right. Prosecution.
This trial is a trial of justice, and not Robespierre's warped version of terror justice. Based on the defense's argument of George Danton falling under justifiable punishment, Robespierre falls under the exact same definition, including the same charges and the same execution. I would like to end today by addressing the claim made by the prosecution that Robespierre was an enemy of the people, and I'd like to look back at this definition saying that enemies of the people are those who seek to destroy public liberty, either by force or cunning. And they are those who have instigated the reestablishment of monarchies or have sought to disparage or dissolve the National Convention in the revolutionary and Republican government. And it is evident that Robespierre is none of those things. Now, to move on to the actual charges in today's trial. The prosecution never actually proved any conspiracy. I have provided that a conspiracy is an actual agreement between two people and has to have the intent to achieve the goal of said agreement. And the prosecution never proved that there was an agreement between Robespierre and another person / people. And there was never an intent to carry out the goal or goals of said agreement, which did not exist. So, in the end, it is obvious that Maximilien Robespierre is innocent. Given that both charges are conspiracies, neither charge is sustained. Therefore, both charges drop, and my client is innocent on all charges. And I'd like to leave you with this final thought. When it comes to removing an oppressive, evil government from power, you must remember that a revolution is necessary. This exact same thing happened to found the United States of America. The British government was oppressive, and the people did something about it. And you have to remember that in any state of a revolution, a conflict can be solved on paper, but a revolution cannot. Thank you.
All right. This ends the trial of Maximilien Robespierre. We will take a short recess, and we will discuss, and we will come back with our verdicts.
Do you want us to be up here with the verdicts? In which order are you going?
I'll call people up as we get ready for them. So you may go back to your seats. It was up there.
That's not ours. Let's bring it.
No, I know. Yours is in the file.
Really?
Can we just recycle all of this? Do we need it anymore? Yeah, are we going to need our needs? We recycle it. I feel like we already
I don't need them.
Okay.
Because I'm actually getting a copy from these cameras of the whole thing. So.
Of mine.
Really, I think you should scrapbook these.
It's my bad. You didn't have that. That would have put them away if we had.
Sure, if you want to grab her and see what she has any opinions.
Bailiff, you look a little scary. Like just sitting there, you're just like, oh my gosh.
I don't look scary?
No. But he was just sitting there, just giving a glare. You're like, oh my gosh.
He doesn't like guilty people.
You were glaring a lot.
Or people with sass. Or things in their pockets.
You're so lucky. And seriously, if I had given you that piece, you guys had nothing for it. Well, we found it on like Monday, so I was kind of, I didn't want to predict you last night.
Well, you gave us all of your other evidence.
No, we didn't. I'm talking like,
okay.
Yeah, and so we just found that. I didn't want to have you have to like rework it. We'll just have it be
I'm sorry.
The source was really, mostly just the but there was. Yeah, but
I know I should have said it. I was getting ready to. I was getting ready to. I was way too ready to play.
I tried to recover. I tried to It's like my closing statement. I tried to do it every day. That's not. I just got to do it. It's done.
Oh, nothing.
I couldn't.
I know. It shows everyone that I'm a princess. I know she's my princess, but everyone's like, "Oh, you go to the Whenever I was watching, this is also pathetic, but whenever I was watching, I always wanted to know how to do it. That's always been my dream. And like, if you were someone that first saw me on the front, you should have like, when they're using all the way, so I would like,
I should have gone to the
stand in line for an hour.
I'll try to do that. Not good for everything. There's no about this.
I just know that we've been 6 years, and like we like 5 days, like 6 years.
My skirt.
We have a condo down here, so I've never been to a skirt. And if I just stayed in like one of our condos, and I always stay with I've always wanted to, and I never got a chance to.
Judge will just.
What? I think it means that there's yeah, because I've been out of session. I know, I was like, that's why I've been up here. That's why I was like, I know, I was like, okay.
Well, under our law, like, wait, was it for damages or was it for just? Okay, if you tell him so he's still charged that, he violated that law. You can't violate.
It's hard. It's hard.
I thought that meant that
I know, he was gonna like.
I was like, I'm sorry, should I get off? That's why I'm here.
Even some of the charges were like, the revolution itself. Therefore, you have to like go through all of those lives, which are far greater than 7,000 points. All of those lives, like taken, would have meant nothing. It would have been
Also, that is straight up. That's straight up from Wikipedia. That's straight up. It's actually
shopping in 2 days.
you'll see that those will they?
Same zone.
I don't want to be about 96%. I don't know. It's between middle college and I don't know. I'm going to apply to middle college. I don't really know at this point in time. I took this all day.
I was going to do that. Like, why would I do that? Because I was already graduated. Why would I stay here for an extra year? So your experience always was supportive. Like, I'm sure the senior would make me go to I imagine next year. I'm feeling senior. Like, imagine if they're all 4 years.
Because she's graduating a year early. She's skipping a junior year. I'm taking up for next semester. Or not next semester. Yeah, my sister was in it first quarter. Why is he laughing?
All right. If I may call the attorneys for Louis XVI and the prosecution. I know one of them's gone, but. On the charges of treason against Louis XVI, you've been found innocent. On the charges of involuntary manslaughter, you've been found innocent. Louis XVI, you have been found innocent on all charges. If I may have the attorneys for Marie Antoinette, along with the Marie Antoinette herself. Marie Antoinette, on the charge of criminal negligence, you have been found innocent. For the charge of treason, you have been found guilty. Sentencing will be delivered at a later date. But I have the attorneys for Maximilian Robespierre, along with prosecution.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to get up. What's up?
Maximilian Robespierre, on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, you have been found guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to impede, injure an officer, you have been found innocent.
1 for 2. I'm cool with that.
All right. Overall, I think you all did a great job. I was very pleased, very proud. Well, obviously, I'm going to always find something that I think you can improve on. That's just in my nature. And so when we get back tomorrow, we will do a reflection in which I will give you an opportunity to voice any potential concerns you have over the verdict, if you would like to argue such issues. Also, I do want you to reflect upon yourself. How did you do? How did your group do? Just overall impressions of this. Then, on the day we come back from spring break, we will actually hold our sentencing. in which I will make my makeshift device to carry out said sentencing according to the historical accuracies of the French Revolution.
Tyler's breaking me out. He's committing treason to get me out.
So, once again, I am very pleased. I told you this all the other day. This has probably been one of the hardest things I've seen you work on this whole year. It shows a great maturity, especially from last year. And this is the best moment for me that I can see a lot of the improvements. And so I'm proud of each and every one of you. You did a great job. You deserve a round of applause for what you did.